Yesterday somebody left me a comment on one of my videos, or I think it was a post. Anyway, his inquiry was a few different ideas for a video, one in particular that stood out that I haven't done in a while because I'm not really sure why. They never really got a lot of attention. I think that there's a solid core group of folks here between the 30 to 50 range, maybe 60, that are actually keeping track and paying attention as we go, and then some other stuff just tends to explode because other people want to know about it. But the overall impact seemed low enough on those videos that they just kind of didn't really make sense. But I had the request, so I'm going to do it. General gist and breakdown of the timeline of God's plan, and then I'll get into where we are now and what I think is going to be happening. And again, this is not a prophecy. I'm not a prophet. I am just kind of reading the tea leaves of what the Bible says. I'm leaning on it. If there's something that I've missed, you guys feel free to put a comment down below. Let me know. I don't claim to know it all. I just been doing this for a long time, so I figured I would share. The 7 days of recreation, they don't really make any sense except for the fact that perhaps it was a timeline. And the reason we know this is, well, Psalm 90 verse 4, days like 1,000 years, it passes away in the night to you, God. In other words, Moses was making light of the fact that God has utter control of time, and it's a flexible, malleable thing to him. He has control over it. He knows everything about it. He is utterly dominant over time and space. Peter repeats this theme in 2 Peter 3:8, where he basically gets into, he says, days like 1,000 years, 1,000 years is like a day, but God is not slow in enacting his promises. He has ordered the times and dates of man so that everybody has the opportunity in some type of life span to make a decision for or against God in the person of Jesus Christ, so as to be saved or not. Okay, we know this because in Revelation there's a 1,000-year period where Christ is reigning, and the seventh day the earth rests. God doesn't need to rest, but the description of the millennial kingdom compared to the prior 6,000 years of man being utterly under the control of the devil, it's as if the earth is taking a gentle nap and everything is going perfectly swell, and we're getting along with the animals and everybody's living to 1,000 years. So the picture of the earth resting for 1,000 years under the reign of Christ, I think, is an easy one to accept. More evidence. If we take all of the dates and times from the Bible and work them backwards, it actually brings us almost exactly to 6,000 years since Adam and Eve were put in the Garden of Eden. So this all lines up very, very well. Other evidence, Christ was standing outside of the temple and he made the prophecy about striking this temple, and in 3 days he'll raise it up. That was a dual reference. That was a reference to his death, burial, and resurrection at that time, because on the third day he rose. We all know this. But then if we look at the millennial day scheme of 1,000 years equaling a day, and there's 7,000-year days of man, Christ died 2,000 years ago almost. 2033, 1,033, 2033 would be an expected year of return. Now, Matthew 24 is clear. We do not know the day or the hour. That being said, he literally makes known that we are supposed to be keeping our eyes open and paying attention to the seasons. We're supposed to see the shoots on the fig tree as they grow out. We know spring is near. So we are told we are to pay attention, but we're also told in the very end we won't know, because the days themselves are shortened by an unspecific number of days. Otherwise, according to Christ, no flesh would survive, right? So that addresses that whole can't know the time and dates, because we can't. They're going to be shortened by a certain number of days. It's impossible. That being said, it's not impossible to know the season. And 2033, return year of Christ, actually makes perfect sense if we go by this particular schema. Now, there's the 7 years of the tribulation that has to be addressed. We know from the prophecy of 490 years in Daniel that there's a 7-year period that is shared by basically Gentiles are second. Israel is once again put first and foremost as the focus of God's plan. So specifically back to the Jews, but there are Christians still active worldwide. And that this particular prophecy has not yet come to pass, this final 7 years. And so we fill in all the blanks. We see all the different references to end times and 7-year periods all throughout Daniel, Revelation, and other places. And we see that there's this 7-year tribulation. So 2033 minus 7, 2026. If we were to go based upon an exact 2,000 years, it would actually land us in the spring of 2026. However, there's two pieces of evidence that actually point to it being in the fall, not the spring. First off, the Hebrew calendar has all of the festivals regarding the return and triumphant, dominant arrival of the Messiah, the Festival of Trumpets specifically, in the fall. Okay. The other side is Revelation 8:2 talks about a half an hour of silence, which would totally make sense considering springtime would have originally lined up with that 2,000 years, but he's decided to delay it for a short period of time, perhaps to advance the security that people will be under during that time, perhaps time to build the temple, perhaps time to call the 144,000 to Israel. We don't know just yet, but we do know that there will be a peace or a truce for a temporary time, most likely exactly 6 months from the spring of 2026 to the fall, where there's essentially no war in heaven, there's no court-taking session, and people are basically led to keep prospering up to a certain point. Then when the tribulation starts and everybody's security levels reach maximum capacity, that's when the Antichrist will step in and be able to do his thing. Now, that final point is probably the most revealing regarding what's going on right now, because a lot of folks are being led to think that perhaps the left will just keep winning, and I'm not trying to make this a political video, but the power structures that be do have some relation to Antichrist and his rise. I say this for a few reasons. First off, Trump is acting very much like Antichrist light. That doesn't mean he's the Antichrist himself. There's too many things that go against him as far as his genetic makeup, his background, the fact that he has already been the most powerful man on earth, not just some random person, whereas Antichrist is described as being small in stature and growing over time while doing his thing. It doesn't show him as being big, then shrinking, then being big again. None of that stuff. So on top of that, it also means young. There's other things. I've talked about this in other videos. Please check those out. I'll try and put them in the description. The other side of this is the fact that the left has had a pattern of trying to tear down decent, moral, conservative societal norms pretty much for 150, 200 years. I don't know. They've been at it for a very long time. They've been doing their communist nonsense. And it would stand to reason if they were to get into office again, they would just continue this slow degradation of the United States, which will eventually turn into Mystery Babylon. I've noted that many times. There's no other nation that could possibly be Mystery Babylon other than the U.S. at this point. So if in fact they were to get into power again, and Kamala would basically repeat the Obama process of slowly breaking down society, causing more and more internal strife, cost of living going way up, jobs down, all these things that basically seem to play into the Communist Manifesto, that does not, in my mind, lead to security. That doesn't lead to people actually feeling like they're being taken care of, or like things are looking up, or that things are even reasonably acceptable. Let's just be honest. Even the lefties right now, they're rioting outside the DNC because they know that the powers that be that they voted in are absolutely evil and are not willing to do a single thing that they want. Plus, some of those crazy people want crazy things, so they're never going to get it. But that's a side topic. So there's the, considering our time now, there's the issue of immigration. It's not only here in the United States, it's also very bad in Europe. If we look at the Antichrist nemesis, the one who actually is the countervailing force that allows Antichrist to rise, you have a nation block of three southern nations that are right now currently all occupied by Islamic peoples, that upon his rise, and it will likely be because of some action, perhaps Israel steals the Temple Mount and people worldwide riot. The left, specifically the left side of politics, has allowed a certain insurgency to run roughshod over all of these Western countries, United States, Europe, all the other far-off Western countries that have been colonized and modernized accordingly. They all have the exact same problem right now. The left side of the politics is bringing in seemingly people that are never willing to integrate. And if we go by the Daniel 2 statue, where the 3 toes are clay and the 7 are steel or iron, these are strong, these are weak, and they never really mingle or mix. That picture stands true even today. Our cultures are so incredibly different that the chances of us getting along after something like, say, a Temple Mount takeover or mass evictions, or mass deportations, really is what it is. I have a feeling that Trump is the only one that is even reasonably in line with the actual Antichrist. And in fact, as I've noted before, I kind of see him as the forebearer, the harbinger, the John the Baptist for the Antichrist. I keep saying that, but I can't let it go, right? Because he has a lot of Antichrist-like behavior to him. He has that sly liar to him. He has a very low moral stature. Clearly, he just wants to win and he wants to succeed. He doesn't necessarily care about the moral side of conservatism, hence why he's not really a conservative. What's coming down the pipeline? Well, I mean, here we sit at It's August 2024, and if we're talking fall of 2026, we're probably talking sometime between October, November, right? For the inception, I mean. And, we should be looking towards some sort of peace accords that happens right around that time that gets signed, because that is essentially one of the signs that the tribulation has or is about to begin. Of course, the worldwide earthquakes, rumblings, and pealings of thunder that occur on a global scale all at once are technically the go sign, the go button, if you will. But we should expect the temple to rise up at some point, and that will start that extreme internal or international rather strife between the West and Islam in general, and it can only get worse from there, worse and worse and worse and worse, up to a point to where we need a hero to come save us from the nasty king of the South that he will likely call Antichrist. So what can we expect in the meantime? I can't promise that Trump's going to win, but I can say that considering the whole breakdown of the description of all of the countries that Antichrist comes to dominate as being secure upon his arising, if you will, I cannot see in my mind a way in which the left could ever fill those shoes. It's possible, but it's not likely, right? Satan does a very good job creating a boogeyman in our minds and then making him seem so giant and so big that it strikes us all at once as the worst possible option, when really he's sitting in the corner sneakily dressed, like a nice salesman that you would trust with your life, and really he's got a knife to your back, right? So the punch, counter punch, the left-right paradigm, all of these things is designed as a shell game to try and get us off of thinking that the Antichrist is who he actually is, and onto thinking to some worldly boogeyman. Of course, this totally explains the rise of the folks on the Christian side who think that the Antichrist can somehow be Islamic. He cannot. But that particular flavor of error is gaining in popularity, and this is intentional. Satan really, really, really wants to sell a false Antichrist ahead of time so that we all rally around the actual Antichrist who goes after the so-called Antichrist for his benefit. So we should be on the lookout for these sorts of things. But as far as anything that is prophesied to occur ahead of time, we're really in a holding pattern right at this point. This is the, I think, the final windings down, if the right gets in, the final windings down, if you will, of the panic mindset of the right and the Christian side. When Trump gets in, he's going to start doing a lot of the things that Antichrist will eventually do, only to a much lesser degree. So it'll seem like it's what we want. It'll feel financially very beneficial. It will likely bring about a certain amount of statistical improvement in peace, right? If mass deportations do actually occur, we're going to see a certain subset of the financial weight that's bearing down on our government significantly retract and not technically have to be there. It'll be a less of a burden for us all to have to pay for, but at what cost? Well, the cost is eventually the Antichrist comes along and continues on until he becomes king, and then he does literally whatever he wants. This is at the halfway point of the tribulation. So don't want to ramble on too much longer. I just wanted to put this out there and kind of lay it on the table. So let me know if I missed something. Comment down below, like, share, subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Bless you all. Thanks for watching.